Muted. You're muted. Greetings. Can you hear me? I think remember you said some great things, but you were muted, so you might want to start over again.
Okay, thank you so
So,
much.
okay, I'll disappear and you can start over again.
Okay, so let's start again. Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings and welcome to this edition of Black Mental Health Matters. We are starting off in the month of May. As you know, May is African History Month. And today we're going to start off by delving into the philosophy of Ubuntu. And I'm extremely honored to have Dr. Kevin Washington, Mwata Kairi, here with us, who's going to shed some light on this very important philosophy, exploring Ubuntu. So I would like to say, join me in welcoming Mwata Kairi. And Dr. Kevin Washington, please introduce yourself and the amazing work that you do.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to be here. Always good to be back with family we do the work with. Oh, this is thank you, my sister Olarun Tonyan. We have traveled the Gambia together in so many places, and so it is good to see you and know that you're still on the trail. And when you're on the trail, I know good is happening. The name is African name is Mwata Kairi. Name is Kevin Washington. The name given to me by my father, Kevin Washington, of course. The name of the oppressor that we named the family named themselves after for a variety of reasons. So we liberate ourselves in various ways. So that is also a part of the journey of healing and restoration. That we have the capacity to identify and name ourselves for a variety of reasons. So we have utilized, of course, Sankara as a potential so-called surname because of the linkage that we have with through African ancestry. DNA through linked us to Burkina Faso and very just we were actually celebrating this before Ibrahim Traore became president. We were celebrating this and understand that Burkina Faso means land of the upright people, and so we strive to be upright in all that we do. So that is the part of the work. But thank you so much for again for having us be here. I am an African-centered psychologist, as mentioned. I have advanced this idea of Ubuntu in the context of mental health service delivery. Though I didn't create the concept, I recognize it as a powerful construct for the healing and restoration of African people. Because if we try to use the European tools for the purpose of healing and restoring ourselves, we will be further insane. Because their model of psychology is predicated on what it means to be human within the context of Western reality. And so if we do not check that, then simply we go into a space by which we will honor them more than we honor our own lineage and ancestry. So we gave rise to what's considered to be the study of the mind, spirit, and or soul psyche, coming from the word saku, according to Jerome Massey in the Book of the Beginnings. Dr. John Henry Clark talks about this as well. So we see that Joseph Ben Yakanan, the elders, have given us understanding that Saku means the essence of the being. And so this is the origin of the word psychology. So we see then that our ancestors gave the idea to the world of how to study and understand the essence of what it means to be. The Western idea has reduced it down to simply thoughts and mental processes or behaviors and mental processes. And we recognize that there's more to that. Talk about what gives rise to the thought and what it means to be. A classic example is that biology can do a very good job of describing for us the process of spermatozoa being released into the the womb of woman going to the ovary process and the fertilized egg, the ovum, and the zygote and the blastocyte. It does a wonderful job of explaining that process, but it cannot explain to us how does that become a zygote or blastocyst or an embryo. It can't even explain what happens that when the spark of light that takes place, what is that? And so for African people, the idea is not simply about the behavior, it's about the essence that gives rise to the behavior. Where does it come from? The energy that's a part of it. And so we can talk about physics and energy. We talk about it in the context of spirit. We talk about it in the context of what it means to be. And so that's what we will explore a bit here. So that's where we are. And so I'm back to Sister Olorun Tonyin. And I was, yes.
Thank you so much. I'm really very excited to hear the presentation. One thing you mentioned, which we often forget, you are explaining to us that actually the concept of psychology is Africa-centered. And it's not so much about the behavior, but about the spirit, about the soul. Can you please expand a bit more on that?
Our work talks about, when we talk about what it means to be in our space, the phenomenological aspect of us, it is about understanding being is spirit. Being is tied to fundamental deep essence. When we talk about African psychology, it is this idea of what does it mean to function as a being that has no beginning and no end. The Batu Congo concept tells us that we are on a biogenetic rope, according to Dr. Fukuyama, and that on this we are past, present, and future, that we are what has been here, we are what is happening right now, and we are what is to become. And on this biogenetic rope are things that get tied on to that rope called makolo. Makolo are knots or challenges that we experience. We could talk about them as the ma'afa, the great suffering of African people. We don't talk about it as the slave trade. The slave trade sounds like trading baseball cards. We don't talk about it as the middle passage. It sounds like walking down a hallway. But Dr. Ani told us about this idea, as well as Dr. Asa Hilliard, the construct of the ma'afa, Kiswahili word for the great suffering or calamity of African people at the hands of Europeans and Arabs. And so what was damaged in the process was not simply the physical body. You can hold the physical body. It becomes the essence of being. And so this beingness has been brought under the control of Europeans, so much so that people begin to believe themselves to be unlike themselves. And that's what the Carter G. Woodson says, that when you control a man's thinking, part of that thought process is his essence. You don't worry about what will become. And so this essence is controlled by the European psyche, so much so that we believe ourselves only to be human, to the extent that we are linked to, that are tied to, that we're attached to European thought. And so African psychologists in the healing process, and those who are empathic in the process of understanding African people, must engage in understanding first and foremost, how do African people function? That is, spirit is essential, and the idea of fundamental essence of what it means to be is a part of the collective, not simply being an entity in and of itself, but the idea that I belong to something greater than myself. To also address the issue of the rupture that took place. How do we deal with that? The rupture is the breach that dehumanized people in such a way that their spirits were broken. When we talk about this song that is sung in many churches in America, Amazing Grace was the song to the moon that was sung. And it wasn't even sung, it was hummed. And so the melody was hummed, and then this European put Amazing Grace on top of it. But it can be played on all black keys on the piano because it's in the pentatonic scale, which is an African way of noting things. So you have this humming of spirit humming, saying we're in this space and we're being broken, we're being ruptured. But if we can simply get the vibration together, we can remain whole at some level. So we have to understand how to heal the rupture. And then how to engage in multimodal approach for the healing. That is not simply talk therapy, but understand that we see spirit as sacred, spirit as essential, that all things are seen as spirit and spirit energy, that life is religion, religion is life. The cause and effect is a spiritual phenomena. To attend to the mind is to attend to spirit. That's a very different way of seeing things, because the Europeans say simply, if you can deal with thoughts and mental processes, if you can talk about reinforcement schedules of behaviorism, or you can look at ringing a bell, Pavlov, and watch Salvation, or B.F. Skinner, the idea of again reinforcement. All those things are tied to a Western model. But the issue is that deeper than that, yes, we have things that get reinforced. Deeper than that is what it means to be. And that's what was really disrupted in the context of the Ma'afa, or the enslavement experience. But more importantly, it was the humming of the song to the moon. Those things were things that have kept us alive. We still have our vibrations intact. We still engage in drumming. Dr. Barry Cartman and I were doing a workshop just this past week in Chicago, two places, and we did the drumming, and it was just amazing to go to the west side of Chicago, people to have an experience of wanting to resonate through the drum, right? Vibration. The dance is a part of the Ngoma in East Africa, is both dance and drum. We know that in West Africa, they talk about among the Ga, there's rhythm and vibration, and that rhythm is masculine and vibration is feminine. Think about how that's powerful, because you even see that when they talk about drum and rhythm and movement and vibration, it has masculine and feminine qualities to it. Rhythm is counted, measured. It's like male, you do this A, B, and C, you get these results. It's counted and measured. However, it has no real expression without vibration. Vibration is like the wind. It can blow some cool or blow some bad. And so when you harmonize the two among the Ga, when you have rhythm joined vibration, you're now beginning to have an entrainment process. That is, that there's a resonance taking place, not in this simple body, but in DNA. We have cells beginning to reverberate at a different level. That's why they outlawed and banned drumming in this space, or even African dance. But you have various drums that they use in Cuba and in Haiti. The cajon is what it's called, the box. I say, well, why did they use the box? I learned about using the box because the French realized that we can get them to work without the drum. Even though the French outlawed the drum, the people that were there on the ground allowed them to use the box crate to beat on, and they got a lot of work done. And so when the lead oppressors came, they simply picked up crates and started moving like they were working, but in reality they were using the box as drums in those spaces to be able to resonate and vibrate. You're talking about Trinidad and taking oil pans and turning them into the pan drum. Again, it is rhythm and vibration. You have the kunga coming from the Congo, taking barrels and strapping, putting skin on that. So you see that wherever you find us, we were able to connect not just with the issue of music, but through those rhythms, through those sounds, through those tones, through the movement, we were able to connect with spirit. So this is why it is so critical. And what's important to note is that you can't have drum, dance, and rhythm just by yourself. It is tied to people. That's why I say some says Akebe means in Mali means let us come together in peace. That is the version of the word djembe, some suggestion. So it is coming together in peace. So I will say this is that when we talk about doing this work, we have to first of all respect spirit in all aspects of life. That's first. We have to appreciate that everybody is having a spiritual journey. We must recognize that particular journey that they're on. We help people to increase their strength along the way of their journey and to keep people in alignment with true purpose, and acknowledge that everybody has a true purpose. So among the Yoruba, the idea of Ori, that we have a destiny, that we're born. You see this happening Akrabia among the Akan. It's everybody saying that you're born with something to do. You're on a journey, that you're all from a different space to engage in the process of life. Not simply you exist, but you are an extension of the biogenetic group that you are extension of something greater than yourself. And so Ubuntu reminds us of that. And we only use the word Ubuntu because it is popularized. It is very common among the construct is common among African people, wherever you find African people, right? So Uchenna talked about this idea of African worldview in 1965. Uchenna said that the African world is filled with all created things and beings of both animate and inanimate, while the spirit world consists of the creator, ancestral spirits, disembodied and malign spirits. The constant interaction between the bad are living and unliving. That's a heavy piece, is that we are both present and past. Fukuyama described it as we are both past and present and future at the same time. We see the same idea. That is an Igbo construct idea coming out of this. Fukuyama's coming from the Congo. The Ubuntu ideas from the Zulu. It is African worldview. It's the same thing that allows the Europeans to join together in what's called the United Nations. They have a worldview and they join together around it. But they want to make question this idea of our worldviewness, right? Well, it's really not African because Africa has a variety of tribes. Yes, it does. Just as there's Russian, there's German, there's Polish, there's Irish, there's Scandinavian. All of those exist. However, they can join together and come together in what's called the United Nations, because why? They still share what Arnie calls the Utamawazo. They still have this particular cultural thrust or idea. It doesn't matter. They resonate with that. The point is, we spend a lot of time bifurcating as to where we are from and what we do. We bifurcate. We split around. Not only you're in Germany, Sister Olun, and I'm in the U.S. of AME, what kind of church you attend, or who went to college, and that kind of stuff. All kind of things, practice traditional. I'm this. You have. We divide around it. But however, the true notion of what it means to be human in the African world is not about the practices that you engage in. It's about your essence. Nnamdi Azikiwe, who went to Howard University, by the way, and Lincoln, and then went on to become the first president of the so-called liberated Nigeria in 1963, advanced what was called Zikisms, right? And Zikisms were straight out of the playbook of Ubuntu. He says, first of all, that the principles of African liberation must be grounded in one, spiritual balance, to show empathy for people's views and recognize their right to hold such views. This is straight out of the playbook of Ubuntu. Though it's not even the term Ubuntu is the same thing. Respect for others and the spiritual views, right? The spiritual balance. Social regeneration, number two, to expel from oneself national, religious, racial, tribal, political, economic, and ethical prejudices, right? To get rid of those things and the issue of social regeneration. So we have one, spiritual balance, respecting people. Two, the idea of social regeneration, the idea of getting rid of the things that's blocking us tribally, because we are one people. And number three was economic determinism, to realize that being self-sufficient economically is the basis of rescuing the renaissance of African people. So this is powerful. He saw that then as the idea of Pan-Africanism. Number four was mental emancipation. This is Nnamdi Azikiwe, the first president of liberated Nigeria. Five, he had spiritual balance, social regeneration, economic determinism, to realize that being self-sufficient economically is the basis for rescue, and next, mental emancipation, to be knowledgeable of African history and accomplishments, and to dismiss any kind of complex exhibited by any race or tribe. So he was saying that you must know who you are to be emancipated. That's one of the challenges that we have. Again, he's speaking from Ubuntu. Who am I for real? And then the last one is political resurgence, to regain the sovereignty, right? The integrity, the sovereignty that Africa has lost to the colonialists, and that it must begin to resurrect itself from the holes of colonialism. And so we have to think of then about Ubuntu means not simply the idea of being human, but what was challenged and destroyed most was this idea of our essence, spiritual balance, social regeneration. We must study individuals like Nnamdi Azikiwe, who actually encouraged Kwame Nkrumah to become and do the work that he did. Go to Lincoln, as a matter of fact, go study it at HBCU. He encouraged Kwame Nkrumah, and then Kwame Nkrumah based himself off of the work of Nnamdi Azikiwe, right? And these are heavy constructs. These are heavy people moving things through. And again, though he didn't call it Ubuntu, it's the same idea that we have one people. Among the Igbo, I think this is so beautiful. And sister, I want to jump back to your questions. They have this construct among the Igbo that talks about complementarity. Is it we can translate it within the English language? It doesn't do it justice, but Ibu Anyi Danda, Ibu Anyi Danda, which is spelled IBUANYDANDA, and it is ontological horizon under which we can begin to examine what it means to exist. It's comprised of IBU, a load, right? ANYI is not insurmountable for the Danda, the ant, when it comes together to make things happen. Even among the Igbo, those not called Ubuntu, is saying the same thing, is that when we work together, life is better, so we can complement one another. There's Njoko Ka among the Igbo, which means togetherness is greatness. Njoko Ka, right? Or Igwe Bu Ike, which is strength in togetherness. Ike means strength. So that Igwe Bu Ike, which means this idea of strength in togetherness. So you see this same construct. We had Yoruba idea among we have Yoruba concept. We have the Igbo saying it. We have the Zulu saying it, the Xhosa saying it, the Swana saying it. Everybody saying it is a part of an African worldview. That is, what does it mean to be human? Among the Zulu, it is called, by the way, the name Zulu means people of the hands. That speaks also about this idea that we are sacred and divine as we walk the face of the planet of the earth. That's heavy, right? But Ubuntu, the interrelatedness of all things. Some want to say that I am because we are, therefore I am. That's cool and simple. That's John and BT's work and idea. However, if you don't understand the I am and therefore we are, it won't make sense to you. Because what does it mean to be the I am, right? And so UBU in the Ubuntu refers to being. NTU refers to the universal or unifying life force. So I am because we are, we are therefore I am does not simply I exist and you are here, but it says that critical to my essence, that which is deep within me, the vibratory frequency of which I resonate, is something that is eternal. Into you, unifying life force says that it is in you and it is in me, and we are connected and we vibe together. That's why we could do certain things together in spaces, and we can vibe together. We can have a good time together. People can pass by you, and you can nod. Sometimes you go places and you see people, and you feel like you've always known them because you're resonating at a vibrant frequency that is consistent with yours, right? This idea of UBU being and with this unifying life force. They said that this unifying life force is with all things that have been created by the divine. That is all things. Now, Europeans don't see it quite the same way. So we're speaking then now about African communalism. Sister, I don't know if you have any questions. I'm looking for you, and I see you. They can't see you, but I can see what's going on over here. So I see you taking notes over there. So I'll keep rolling. So African communalism, according to Koza, is a concept that views humanity in terms of the collective existence. It says that we exist in the collective. Serving is the basis of supportiveness, cooperation, collaboration, and solidarity, right? And so this is really the notion of Ubuntu, or idea of African collectiveness, communalism. Getche says that African communalism is the kinship-oriented social order which is informed by an ethic of reciprocity, meaning that we are existing and we are giving and we are taking. Now, this is real deep, because it's not simply about giving and taking because we didn't want to give and take, the idea of quid pro quo in the legal system, but it is in my extending myself to you. It is really, I'm extending myself to myself. And by so I'm giving back to myself because you are part of me and I'm a part of you. A very different way of being. I ask students all the time, if I walk into a classroom and I'm not there and you're not there, if I walk into the classroom and you're not there, am I a teacher? They say, yes. I say, I'm not a teacher. I'm just a person in the room. Just as if you come into a room, you're not students until I show up. It is about the relationship of one another that creates a condition by which we are elevated, because in community we have existence, we have meaning. Alone, we simply exist in a way that we had a potential to move to the next level. Bovula talks about the erosion of such. He says that we have an erosion of these ideas. And so I will shift here when I share that, even though the ideas may have eroded, I want to share these three powerful proverbs that we see on Xhosa, Zulu, and the Shona, and they mean basically the same thing: Ubuntu, Ugamuntu, Ugabantu, which means that an individual's humanity, identity, is expressed in relationship with others. That you only have a way to express yourself because of others. Again, Ubuntu, Ugamuntu, Ugabanya, Abantu. And you hear in that at least three times, NTU. Ubuntu, NTU, Ugamuntu, NTU, Ugabanya, Abantu, which means that a person has expressed itself in relationship to other people, that we can only have real meaning as we express among each other, just as they say with the origin of the word djembe, akebe, akebe, right? Let's come together. You can't drum by yourself and make it make a whole lot of sense. Until when you drum with others, that's when you have a vibe. Zulu call it umuntu, gamuntu, agabantu. Each word there has into you. It says person is a person because they're other people. And the Shona call the same construct of Ubuntu. They call it Hunu, by the way, and it is Munhu, Munhu, Muvanhu, which means that a person is a person through other people. That's a heavy way of seeing your existence. And I submit that the greatest rupture of African people was this notion of our humanity being tied to one another. We see us as being human in this context, how where we can imitate the oppressor. We want to imitate the oppressor, become like the oppressor, which means by default, we become oppressors of ourselves because their worldview predicated on the dehumanization of us. But this idea of humanization does not mean simply I have worth and value because of you. As a matter of fact, because of us, of we, I'm able to be able to stand and defend and fight against that which comes against my humanity. It doesn't mean that one is simply weak and wilt. It means one has power and strength. And so this African value is heavy. And so again, give you an example. Among the Kikuyu, it is called Umundu. Among the Kimaru, it's called Umuntu. Bumuntu among the Kisomo or Kia of Tanzania. Vumuntu among the Songa or the Shiswa, Mozambique. Bamoto among the Congo, as well as Gimuntu among the Kikonga of the Congo. So this concept is all over, sister, and that's what I find to be powerful about it. It speaks to humanity, tolerance, and respect, and it says that I exist in spirit, in essence, because of your essence. And that means that because of your essence, I really have a true existence. Not I am because we are in that raw sense of Western sense, but because we have been placed on this life journey together for our paths to intersect. That was a call from the ancestors. That was from a higher spirit. And that is deeper than just simply saying I am because we are. We are called to move together in concert to do, and that's what we have to go get back to and put back into perspective.
Thank you so much for explaining this very importance of the spiritual balance, actually, that is often neglected in the political struggle and in our fight for empowerment. And I'm so happy that you touched on that topic. This relationship between spiritual balance and economic power, for example, economic uh, um, stability, self-sufficiency, which is often plaguing our communities. Can you please, again, stress on how these two factors, achieving spiritual balance and at the same time acquiring, what does it take to acquire economic independence?
Powerful, right? I want to. I see family on here from a variety of places. I just noticed Samole from the Gambia, Sharifo and Fode. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to pause and say something about that experience, and then we talk about economic development. Right?
Yeah.
Every time you meet somebody in the Gambia, they ask a question: how is the family? Right? Which is heavy to me because they're asking something very deep. They don't ask how are you doing. They ask how's the family. It's like, bro,
How's
you
the
don't even
family?
know my family, right? Because they know that if you are here, you have family. How is everything in in your world? Those greetings speak volumes. Shea Lafiani, about our things in the universe. Sawubona, right? And so I wanted to watch from Cape Town, as I said, Azania. Thank you. So Sawubona asked the question about how are things in your space? How are your connections, Bukana, your connections with one another? Some say it means I see you. You can't see me unless you understand that I come from Bukana. I come from essence, a spiritual essence, because you're seeing me because I'm tied to those that have gone before me. Among the Zulu, you have to do proper umzabezi to actually be seen. And so that's also prolific and profound. So greetings, family, from in Cape Town, and
Yeah.
also Banjul,
Banjul, Ode Ture.
and the and in the U.S. I see family here, Derek and others, Bari. I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge the fact that this is family connecting, and that how do we know it exists? We watch and we observe. We spend time in these spaces. We spend time in Azania. We spend time in the Gambia. Spend time in Ghana. We watch and observe certain things and realize how powerful African humanity is now. How do we make that an economic enterprise? That's a very powerful thing, because the thing that is our greatest strength has been our greatest vulnerability. That is the idea of thinking that everybody that we come in contact with is human, right? But this is why when I love so much when sister in Azania, I asked the question about Akufa Kwabantu, which means metaphysicals of the people. Akufa Kwabantu says that you have these disruptions in spirit, and so you have, if you don't do proper ritual, you have Abapanza Basifulotele, which is withdrawal of ancestral protection because you have not performed proper ritual. So I asked the question, Bantu means the people. I asked the question, is it possible for Africans to have these list of things called ukufu kwabantu, that is metaphysical illnesses, and they have a variety of them. One, of course, I gave you was Abapanza Basitele, and many others that exist. And she says, no, you have to be human to have these disorders, right? And so it's critical to know that even there, they recognize that the African Europeans are not really human. And that's deep, because I know that in the U.S., we recognize that there's some things about some folks just human. That's why you hear the Negro spiritual says they got shoes, we got shoes, all got shoes, children got shoes, but everybody talking about going to heaven. Heaven ain't going. Why? They recognize that there's something different about how those folks function and operate. And so we have to be clear about what it means to be human. And within the African worldview, the idea of humanity is not predicated on your existence. It is predicated on how you express essence. And that's different, because your essence indicates things. So economically, how do we begin to move in concert with essence and stop being taken advantage of by the oppressor? We recognize a variety of things, that the oppressor comes in to get most of the resources that the world come out of the earth of the continent of Africa, whether it is a coltan and tantalite in the Congo, whether it is the Queen of England is drinking from Madagascar, whether it is a coffee from Rwanda and Ethiopia, and now Ghana is getting into it, whether it's the cocoa, the chocolate that Hershey chocolates use in the United States, or the other folks, the Dutch, what do we call it, the Swedish, whichever they do, like over in Brussels, all that kind of stuff, right? That's coming, the cocoa is coming from Africa. Their entire world is predicated on Africa. Right now, the control now is for lithium to be able to control the batteries. We have to stop being a cheap date globally. Not only we're cheap in the United States, but we're cheap date everywhere. So Ubuntu says that I have to also stop and not and respect my humanity by not being exploited by others. Because Ubuntu doesn't mean that you get exploited. It means that you recognize that because you exist and because you are the seed of a seed, you have a responsibility to protect, to extend and defend that reality. And anything that comes against your humanity must be destroyed, right? And that's another act of understanding Ubuntu as well. And we forget that part of the process. We think that's simply about, a kumbaya coming together. But also is that if I come in and take all of your stuff, I'm not family, right? And if I come in to build, I am a family. So anyway, we have an obligation economically to recognize that the wealth of the world is predicated on resources that come from the space, but we give it up cheaply. And then look at how we export it, because I get a little bit extra, a few ones than you, then everything is fine. And then when I pushed back against that, we see Patrice Lumumba. There is a killing of a population. Kwame Nkrumah, we said destabilization. We see all of these things taking place. But we also see currently individuals are beginning to stand up against the French, right? Ibrahim Traore. We have Faye in Senegal. We see these movements taking place right now in Niger, Mali, and so forth. So something is happening. There is an awakening. And the awakening is about not being taken advantage of. That is also Ubuntu.
Thank you. Emphasize community and mutual caring for everyone, for all. And this can be integrated into the modern movement we have for Black empowerment. Are there any examples which you can say of how Ubuntu has been effectively applied in struggles for liberation, for example?
So we see even the idea of Pan-Africanism is Ubuntu. It is how do we connect together. We see Molema in South Africa. We see Joshua Mapongo in Zimbabwe. We see Alo Lumumba in Kenya. We see these individuals prophetically expressing something about Ubuntu. We see Dr. Ariana. We see these individuals, these voices saying, listen, wake up and come together in community. We see the voice of the president's wife of Sierra Leone, and her name is I happened to meet her in the Gambia, which was very powerful. But she's talking about how we have been exploited. And so we see that when people recognize their humanity, they deny that being taken away from. We see it in the act of Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad, when she moved and said that I could have freed a lot more if they had known that they were enslaved or they were slaves, right? She moved not just to save herself, but she went back to bring others along. So we see the Ubuntu process being practiced over and over and over again. And it is a part of the liberation process. It gets set back because there are some wannabe Uruguayans or Europeans who desire to join up with them, and then they sell us out, right? So there is the Marcus Garvey conversation, Ubuntu, right? He says, let us come together, one aim, one God, one destiny. That's Ubuntu, right? So we see these things happening over and over and over again. They're part of liberation struggles, they're part of liberation challenges. However, they get set back because of a mindset or fear that somehow we can only exist in the context of being in the basking in the shade of the European. But Ubuntu says, listen, I exist, I have being, I have worth, I have power, I come from power. That is also what led Shaka Zulu to be able to create an armed force, to be able to fight against the Europeans, right? He found this idea of we are unified together. But even when we talk about IET, Boukman, and I'm losing the name all of a sudden, Jacques Mao, we have all of these individuals coming along, and they said, know who you are human. And what was heavy about the Haitian Revolution is that people were saying, how do we fight these people to get with, because they have guns? And Jacques Boukman said, listen, every creature that the divine has created has a way to defend itself against its oppressor. Why do you think you have not been created with defense against your oppressor? Right? And that began to click in their head. They said that everything you have, if you have a spoon, that's a weapon. Whatever you have, that's a weapon against the oppressor. That's Ubuntu. For I first recognize your own unique humanity. Let me say it this way. I think this is critical. We look at the quote by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He says that Ubuntu is the essence of being human. It speaks to the fact that my humanity is caught up in yours, and we bound together. I am human because I belong. It speaks about wholeness. It speaks about compassion. A person with Ubuntu is welcoming, hospitable, and generous, willing to share. The quality of Ubuntu gives people resilience, enabling them to survive and emerge still human despite all efforts to dehumanize them. Powerful, because it's not simply about I am because you are. It gives me the resilience because of my beingness, and that won't be denied. And that's a heavy piece, a heavy call. So we see this over and over again. If we go through every liberation movement, it said, first of all, I know I have worth and value. So you see it with the revolt in New Orleans. You see it with the Cato Rebellion. You see it over and over again. I have value and worth because I exist, and we are joined together in the fight against that which is coming against our humanity.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. When you were speaking, I had to think that in some of our traditional settings, when we are on the continent, this all seems so natural. But we do face challenges in implementing Ubuntu when we are within historic communities, like here in Germany, you know, when we live in communities which have been influenced by individualistic societies, something changes. What are the challenges that we have in implementing Ubuntu in such societies, and how can we combat that?
We're so honored to be able to have your presence in Germany, because you are doing the work. You and classic is not probably talking about what you're doing in Germany, but you are actually bringing community together around Ubuntu. I just simply want to acknowledge dear brother David in Mozambique, and also Eid Muhammad in Somaliland. Thank you all for joining us again, showing the idea that we are joined together in this conversation of liberation through our humanity. So you are a classic example, Sister Olaroon, of what happened in Germany. We started with simple organizations. It was about childbirth and birthing places, and connecting, making sure that our people give birth. There's somebody that's like them, that supports them, teaching them how to engage in the radical construct of Black self-love, right? That's a radical construct because it's easy to love the oppressor. We think that our hair is bad. We want to change it. We think that our skin is bad. We want to bleach it. That's a global process. We want to thin down our lips and shave those and all kind of stuff. But the idea of radical Black self-love, the idea of loving self, the idea of loving relationship with one another, and Black people, that's also radical, because we spend more time loving the oppressor than we love ourselves, right? And that's a heavy piece. And so this idea of what you're doing with simply childbirth that starts from the womb, and people coming into a space and challenging the idea of love self is Ubuntu. The work in psychology we talk about, right? The idea of how do you engage in the process of feeling connected and whole to other people. First of all, feeling connected with yourself, but know that you are joined together with others, and your connections are the things that give you strength and gives you wholeness. That's a process, because we spend more time in the space of fragmentation. Now, what we recognize is that we need each other. That's why people begin to form gangs and other things. We find that happening quite often. We find gangs forming because of people finding ways to connect. And when I was in South Africa doing research, what I recognized, what I found out is that there were no gangs among the Zulu, those Swan, the Ndebele. It was not among them. It was among the coloreds who were not black enough to themselves to be a part of the African groups of Zulu, anyone, the others, but they were too black to be Afrikaners or whites, and so they existed in a no man's space. And so as a result, they started forming these gangs. The same thing in the United States. The gangs are forming, and it's a form of identity, a form of coming together. It's a form of love and support in a way that can be good, so has some downfalls to it, because it's around a criminal activity. But again, it's finding ways to be and to exist. And so what we do is we find ways to shift the beingness from being counter, right? And that's why I think it's so important not to exist in the context of having a counter narrative, right? So if you have a counter narrative or a decolonization, the idea of the narrative is guided conversation, right? So if I recognize that my fundamental truth is what it is, I don't have to sit up and figure out how to counter your narrative. I give you the corrective narrative that's happening. The correct narrative is my truth. And as a result, it counters what you've just posited in this space. So talk about the decolonization. By virtue of me claiming my Africanity, right, existing in it, I am decolonizing my mind. I don't have to focus on decolonization, though I recognize the powerful work by Watchango and others about decolonizing the mind. I recognize it's powerful, and I'm not knocking it. I'm saying that the phase of saying when I exist in the firmness of who I am, as a result, I am decolonizing my mind. So decolonization is a process, not a destination. So the element of identifying with who I am and why I function is powerful. So we want to welcome Araba from Ethiopia as well. It is good again to have family all over joining this conversation. We want to see the questions too pop up, because we can go. We have about what, 5-10 minutes left. 5 minutes left. Go. So go ahead.
So
it's back to you.
ask questions. Please do ask questions. Really global family, and it's amazing that you all participate. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, thank you so much on that very important topic of self-love, the individual love we have for ourselves, as well as the radical Black self-love we have for each other, and how important this is in our empowerment. Coming back to the individual level, some of us are battling with mental illness, or we have those in the family who have also mental struggles or other struggles. And it's not always easy to see the big picture. The things that you described, the feeling, the energy that connects us all. When we're in this state of trauma and we have lost these connections, what possibilities do we have using Ubuntu as a healing, not just a healing concept, but a facilitation to healing?
So that is actually the criminal narrative, the aspect of the upcoming book that we have about Ubuntu and psychotherapy. That's what we talk about in Ubuntu psychotherapy. How do we talk about using the construct of what it means to be human for the healing of our people. I want to go back and greet again Sharifo, Jabarte, and in the Gambia. I just want to let everybody know that this brother is working on becoming a lawyer, if he's not one by now, one of the most prolific, profound lawyers of out of the Gambia. A very powerful brother. He and his compadres are very, very wonderful and deep and profound people because they're doing the work, they're asking the question, and they're going deep with it in the Gambia, moving through. They had some challenges with an institution, but even through all of that, they continue to move forward to advance something. Again, that's Ubuntu. I didn't meet Sharifo by himself. I met him with two other people that they traveled together with, and they've never met me one-on-one. They've always come as a group, and so I just wanted to acknowledge the brother. So we talk about humanity, the restoration process. First of all, we ask people the question, who are you connected with? What do you feel connected to, right? What is your level of connectedness to self and others? That's a part of the healing process, because if one feels disconnected, that then causes a great deal of problems in the world for them. So we work on making sure that people feel connected to themselves and others. The issue is, next question deals with the idea of connection. What are the things that you do to feel connected and or grounded? And so David writes here, one of the problems that hampers the implementation of Ubuntu in my country is the division among the youths due to political interference, especially where there's no separation of government institutions. How can we break that and make sure that Ubuntu is implemented for the benefit of all? Again, we have the issue of government being influenced, empire then makes sure that all move in concert with their interests. But we recognize that why does Mozambique exist, and who benefits from the resources from Mozambique? But we talk about in mental health, and we'll come back to that, David, just for a moment. I'd love to tap your thoughts about what can be done specifically that you see to make Ubuntu real. Is that we begin to acknowledge connections. How do you establish those connections? And more importantly, what are some of the things that you do to make sure that you're grounded, right? And so we recognize that grounding comes through understanding your purpose, that you're born with a purpose, you're on a journey, that your journey is tied to other people. How's it manifesting? What activities that you're engaging in, spoken word, drumming, movement, those kind of things. How do you see your purpose in recognizing that change must take place? So, for example, David sees something specifically that other people in Mozambique may not see clearly, because his purpose was to see just what he saw, to be able to ask the question. And people can be in the same space and not ask that same question because they don't see the same thing, which means that's also part of Ubuntu. Means that your responsibility, David, then is to be able to move and to address and dismantle the things that's disrupting the connectivity that people are having with one another by being the point of connection, by being the agent of Ubuntu, by showing it through your actions, by whatever enterprise that you engage in, right? And then the benefit is not something that you can articulate always, but it's experienced. People begin to notice it. If I try to explain to you what happens in the context of a drum circle, I can tell you mechanically what it is, but I can give you the full feeling, because the feeling of it is something that you have to experience. People begin to say, yeah, I feel it when I'm in the middle of it. People feel it when they know. And so you recognizing, David, the notion of Ubuntu and what it means to be human, you recognize that your beingness is tied to something greater than itself. And you move with that allows others to be able to shift even when they don't want to. I've been in places where people have had a desire to be pariahs, to want to take advantage of one another. But as we exist with the spirit, it begins to change the atmosphere. And so the other people who are able to see that, that's the other thing that we talk about with Ubuntu, is acknowledging the fact that the other people on a journey with you, that you're always being led to be open, to be led into having experiences that fortify your presence, your purpose, and your passion. And that's very important. Give thanks for being in a space like my people provides respite. I guess that's what I was just saying, right? All right. So Abena, much love and respect. Struggles are in the West, she said, and around so much negative energies on the day-to-day basis. Indeed. And there are also the positives that are with us. And too often we give credence to the negative energies, but the negative energies are only there to remind us of something else that's even greater. And when we stand in the face of those things that are negative and coming against us without buckling because of the power that's within, it shifts them to function differently, which is also good. Generational trauma also make it difficult to connect with family who don't understand our histories and journeys. Indeed, we talk about the biogenetic rope among the Congo. They talk about the Makola, or the knots that are tied, and our job is to tie those knots. That's biogenetic. Those are generational traumas, but also they're generational strengths, resilience that we've also passed on, that we don't always acknowledge it. So we spend more time on the traumas, which they are many, and they distance from true power. However, the fact that Abena Maroon, you exist, it speaks to something else that exists greater than the traumas, because you have existed beyond those traumas. So we have to recognize also generational strengths, the things that they passed on to us that makes us powerful, have purpose, and have passion. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing that point in. I mean, it's also very important, like when we talk about purpose, make that point that there is a lot of power and healing. And sometimes we have to go back to those ancestors. You know, if in our ancestral worship we can only connect with those who have traumatic experiences, we can go further back to the place where where our ancestors were powerful and strong, and we still carry that in us today. Thank you so much for explaining that importance of grounding, of aligning with our purpose, and integrating our personal experiences with our connection to others. This is so
Well, let's
important.
speak to that for a moment, right? Just before you
Yes.
disappear, I know that you all know the idea of how do we connect with the ancestors, right? Do we set up spaces in our homes, in our place, where we can connect with those that have allowed us to be able to be here, right? So we know about the creator, whether the creator is Uludumare and Yame Kululu, whether the creator is called Yame, Bama the Clay. It's a variety of names that the creators call all over. However, everybody has ancestors that has made it possible for us to stand and to be here. Do we set up a space where we acknowledge both the creator and those that have gone before us? That's where that Umzabezi is so important. And so how do you do that? And so there's certain things that we could talk about, have space, altar, shrine, the space that is set aside. We put in the white cloth celebrates, honoring ancestral powers, and the idea of the various candles, right? White candle generally, and just the images that you put in, the things that's important, because every society engages in ancestral veneration at some level, except the people with the stronger ancestral ties and connections, right? And what do I mean by that? Every time we go and we spend $1 in the United States of America, we have a European ancestor to honor. Benjamin Franklin 100, Abraham Lincoln 5. Well, we have, Andrew, we have all these people that we are giving homage to. Streets are named for people, schools named for these Europeans. So they have ancestral veneration every single day. You go through Washington, D.C., there are circles, Logan circle, and so forth and so on. And you have to go around these circles with these images inside of it. So there's a veneration, there's a process of acknowledging them and their energy. But we don't stop and acknowledge our ancestral legacy, those that made it possible. We are saying, we're showing our children how to recognize us, but we're no longer here because we are here on our journey, on a purpose, and that this journey is a continuum. How do we, that's also Ubuntu, how do we recognize the biogenetic growth that we're doing? How do we acknowledge those that have gone before us? and also give recognition to those that are around us and those that are yet to come. We spend a lot of time dealing with the disconnect, but if we stop and get in our spaces and get what is the quality of the food that we're eating? That's Ubuntu, right? Are we fortifying the body with stuff that makes the body have honor that energy, that life flow? What are the activities that we engage in, exercise and movement? That's Ubuntu, right? All those things are a part of Ubuntu practice, not simply talk therapy, but it is a lifestyle that is transformative. But I want to begin with, you said, how do we acknowledge, how do we set up altars or shrines or spaces within our house? That's spooky. Why is that spooky? When everybody is doing it, every time you go to any country, their money has their images on it. And yet that's spooky to us. And we have the most powerful people facing the earth that have ever walked, and we are afraid to acknowledge them. What happens when we stop and honor those that have gone before us? And how does really get into order? That's a real challenge. We have Sweden, Prince Ibrahim. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Brother David, for that, and Mama Abner as well, Nana Abner, for the statement. I'm done.
Thank you so much for pointing out how such practices, traditional practices, ancestral veneration, is actually a tool which assists us in confronting and dismantling colonialism, the legacies of colonialism which still remain. So I think it's important to incorporate this into our daily life and community practice. You already showed us how this is done in Western societies, but yet we have yet to engage proudly in this process. Just to end, I would like to come to the topic of justice movements, to talk about Ubuntu and racial justice. Black Lives Matter, Black mental health matters. How can we inspire and strengthen our communities in this fight for justice today,
A powerful question, right? I want to say that, Yannick Young had put together a book, and it was Ubuntu. It talks about the Ubuntu, human being, plural, Kintu, the idea of what's inanimate objects, Huntu, place and time, the power of spirit within place and time, and Kuntu, the modality, quality, or rhythm. So we have all of these notions of energy that among African people that talk about movements. And Elizabeth Afribre, thank you for Pan-Africanism watching from Ghana. So thank you so much for watching this. We have to recognize that in this process of liberation, social justice, a proclamation of African humanity is an act of social justice, because the European utilizes the machination of white supremacist ideology to suppress the beingness of African people, so much so that the people begin to believe themselves to be inferior. So to proclaim one's humanity in the context of those that have denied one their humanity is an act of social justice. Out the gate, we must recognize that first and foremost. That is what led to the liberation of IET, which is why it suffers to this day, because they proclaimed themselves to be human despite all that was coming against them. That was an act of social justice. When we see various movements taking place, the reason why the enslavement process began to choke and come to a halt in Ghana, the Gold Coast, because individuals like Nana Santwa said that we are humans beyond all things. The reason why things began to shift in South Africa when the Europeans were finding a trade route, and they were stopping at the Cape in order to go into a space to rest, and then they began to encroach upon the land. And Zulu and others says that we are human, we're not to be dehumanized. That's when there was an act of social justice and begin to cause an overthrow of the government. We have to recognize that the proclamation of African humanity is an act of social justice. The idea of talking about this in psychology, to talk about how to be human to people who have been dehumanized and who live in a space that is predicated on the dehumanization. For me, psychotherapy is an act of social justice. So we have to understand that the first and foremost thing is that the proclamation of I exist, I have value, I have worth. Second thing, to understand your historical legacy. Where do you come from for real? What is your true negative, your true worth? Yes, there's some negativity in your past. However, there is something of strength and of value to go back and to get. That's what the idea of the Sankofa bird out of Ghana, right? To go back and fetch that they were just lost. To go back and understand something about your historical legacy. Because that's what you're drawing from. That's where your power comes from. They recognize that it has been done in the past and it can be done in the future. And then secondly, to recognize that you are doing something to make sure that the seed that comes forward doesn't have to go through the suffering of that which you had to encounter. In the United States, for example, Black people are known to eat pig guts, call them chitlins, spelled chitterlings. And so I said that there was no point in time where an ancestor was waiting for pig intestines to come out of the pig for their consumption. They ate the pig intestines. They turned it into chitlins by cleaning and washing it, because it was the SOLE, the soul food that was left. And by their essence, they transformed it into SOUL, some substance that could be consumed, so that those that come behind them won't have to go through that process again. And too many times we believe that that process of eating the intestines is who we are. No, that was an action of liberation, of social justice, to say that I will go through this today so that those coming behind us can do it differently. And so we have to recognize, because we continue to rise, we continue to exist, we continue to thrive. That is social justice. So we have to recognize that, yes, Black lives matter. Do we believe that we matter? Black minds matter. Do we believe that our minds matter? We have to recognize this idea that we are connected. We were reminded here, I'm a Pan-Africanist, Congressman Azania, and inspired by the late Sebukwe. It's very easy for me to subscribe and to be drawn into this conversation. Thank you. We talk about Robert Sebukwe's work in South Africa and how powerful he was. Do we study? Do we know who Sebukwe was? Right? We know who Mandela was, but do we know who Sebukwe was? And now in the quarry, Sebukwe had a space all by himself that they not only did they move him to Robin's Island, as they said, but he could not even socialize with everybody else. And so the way they would communicate with one another is that when the men like Mandela's brother saw Sebukwe in the quarry, they couldn't talk. They would pick up the dirt and just let it go to the ground, saying, "I see you." So Sawubona, and he would do the same thing. "I see you," saying that, brother, we see you over there, but we're still connected. That's an act of social justice. So we have to recognize that when we study these individuals like the Sebukwe's, when we study the existence of individuals like Thomas Sankara, when we study their actions, that's social justice, right? And so, so we have to recognize that these are moments of social justice. So Abena puts in chitlins. I often wondered what that was. I'd never researched it. Yes, chitlins, pronounced chitlins, spelled chitterlings, chitterlings. They are pig intestines. It is what is left because the Europeans would throw away everything but the pig butt or the ham. And so that's why people of African descent in the United States understand how to do pig feet, pig snout, pig tail, pig ears, pig tongue, the intestines, because that was SOLE that was left. I'm not an advocate of eating chitlins. That's not the point I'm making. My point is that it was an act of social justice, that I'll say yes, sir, so that those coming behind me can say hell no, right? And that's where we are. So we have to recognize that, yes, Black lives matter. Yes, African lives, Black minds matter. Yes, we matter. That is an act of social justice, because there's some that desire not to see ourselves as real matter. But beyond matter, we are spirit beings and becoming. That's our Ubuntu, that we are elevated in consciousness every single day. And then we always recognize that those that have gone before us have stood, and some have some heinous things, and others have done some things that simply were because they lived through heinous conditions. And because of them, we exist. And the question comes, what is our day like today that's going to make tomorrow better for those that are coming behind us? Because we are the seed of a seed of a seed of a seed of the seed. And that's all we have to do is to elevate in business to make sure that the future becomes even greater.
Thank you so much. I think those are powerful words with which we can end our presentation today. And it's so complex, not complex actually. It's something which I think when we realize the spirit energy with which we are working with, which connects us all, then things become actually quite simple. Yeah, as we have also have the power of those who have paved the way for us with us. We carry that power also within us. So I would like to say, conclude and say thank you so much. I extend my deepest gratitude to uh, Mwata Kairi, Kevin Washington, for this illuminating presentation on the African philosophy of Ubuntu, the historical and contemporary significance. And yeah, let us be reminded of this powerful truth. You know, we are spirit and we exist because of the sacrifices of those which have gone before us. And as Mwata Kairi has said and highlighted, Ubuntu is much more than philosophy. It's something that touches the essence of our spiritual lives. And let us continue reflecting on our interdependence and acknowledgement. Um, thank you so much for this lesson of Ubuntu. And I know it can be ongoing. This is not the last one because there's so much we can learn. And, thank you most profoundly for making today's Black Mental Health Matters meaningful and memorable. I thank you also, the global family from all over, from Nigeria, Gambia, South Africa, Mozambique. Welcome and thank you. And yes, several of you are asking that you want to be part of the Black Mental Health family. Yes, we are welcoming you. Watching from Thank you so much. I would like to give the last sentence to you, Mwata Kairi.
I was actually, I was actually pulling back so that you could close us out because you are a powerful sister. Want people to know, family know that it is a pleasure to be a part of this conversation. There's so much more to talk about the mechanics of Ubuntu, how it works, and how I really want to belabor the moments with that because that gets into some other discussions. But I do appreciate David asking the question: how do we begin to move the political systems that are actually controlling our people? You mentioned people like Senator Mandela. Might it be possible to have some readings and discussions breaking down the works of our Pan-African ancestors to develop great understanding? Powerful. I guess we should actually do that. Thanks so much, Sister Abena, for that question. That is powerful. Of their work, right? Sister Alicia Blackwood, who's put together a very powerful piece on Ubuntu pedagogy. Her book is Ubuntu Pedagogy, so she is again taking the work and moving it around the world. And one of the things I think is so amazing to us both. She talks about how how she's done it and pulled me along the way with her. We take Ubuntu to South Africa, and they're looking at us like, "Wow, this is good. It's like this is your stuff." And so it's amazing how we leave our stuff to take up the fight for the oppressor, assuming that it's somehow better. And I want to recognize that what we have is the best that's ever been created, and we have to discontinue going through the
Yes.
process of seeking to be validated by those that don't have the capacity to validate anybody. That the power to be validated is already within. The Zulu call themselves the people of the heavens. We recognize that we are sacred and divine. Among the people of Kemet, it said every morning, Anuk Asar, I am divine. Our biggest challenge is to recognize that we are indeed divine, which is why I say that as Fukiya reminds us, we are the seed of a seed of a seed of a seed of the seed, that we are sacred and divine. We are people of the heavens. We have a powerful purpose. And every day that we move, we should move in concert with our purpose, no matter how challenging it becomes. Because when we move in concert with our purpose is where our true power comes from. And every obstacle shall be removed, because we recognize that what is working on our behalf is what working against us. I want to be clear about that. As we engage in, as you mentioned, honoring the altar, the ancestors, we engage in honoring all of that, and when we connect with those around us, the army that we have working on our behalf is greater than that which is working against us. To simply know how to call upon it, live within our purpose, and elevate within it, and that's where the true power comes from. Let's rise up, family, rise up. So we would do that. The work, Sankara, Mandela, Sabukwe. We need to do a better job. Maybe that's part of the work that we will do, to share their works. We know about some of the other ones, but not their works. And so Sabukwe's narrative is profound. Sankara renamed the country Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, land of the upright people, integrated women into the process, challenged the French. That's a heavy piece. He said that, think about this, he said that we will call ourselves Burkina Bay upright people. That means you have to stand up and be human instead of walking around with your head down being dehumanized. I love it. Anyway, walk upright people, walk upright.
Yes. Well, and have an amazing May 1st. Thank you so much.